listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to 30 on Thursdays, SusQtech's webinar series. I'm going to get started with some quick housekeeping. If this is your first 30 on Thursday, what 30 on Thursdays is a bi-weekly 30-minute webinar series where we tackle all sorts of interesting subject matter related to SharePoint. Our next webinar is coming up on July 12th, and that will be My Sites for Everyone, and you can get a full list of all of our webinars. We have the entire schedule out there on SusQtech.com/webinars, and we have the schedule built out till mid-August. One other note while we're speaking of webinars, SusQtech is offering a responsive web design paid 3-hour webinar where we're going to talk about how you can implement responsive web design in a SharePoint environment to allow your website to look good on a tablet, to look good on a monitor, to look good on a phone. That'll be taught by our own Kyle Schaefer, and that's coming up on June 27th from 1 to 4 p.m. East Coast time. So if you're interested in that, you go out to SusQtech.com and go under the training link. So on today's session, today's topic is digital signatures for SharePoint. It's being presented by our friends at ARX, who is a partner of SusQtech. I have on the line with me Mike and Jonathan from ARX. I, of course, am Steve Witt, the Vice President of Training and Product Development here at SusQtech, and I will be the moderator. During today's session, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the question window located on the right-hand side of your screen. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen, or the chat window. And we'll go ahead and answer as many questions as we can, either during the presentation or more than likely we'll save them to the end. So that's enough of me talking. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike from ARX, and we'll get started.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And let me go ahead and show my screen here. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
I can, yep.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and put it in presentation mode, and if everyone's ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Mike Milton with ARX, and I have some slides here I'd like to go through regarding digital signatures with SharePoint and our Cosign digital signature solution. And because I know most of you are wanting to see the demos, I'll try to get through these as quickly as I can so we can get into the demo section. So let's get started. The agenda today, I'd like to introduce the ARX Cosign solution, the business drivers, why people are looking at digital signatures, the Cosign digital signatures as far as document integrity, policy and control, SharePoint integration, and as I mentioned, we'll get into the demos, see the Cosign experience with SharePoint, and then we'll save some time for some questions and answers at the end. So getting started, who is ARX? We're the world's leading supplier of digital signature solutions for enterprises and government agencies. Cosign is used by organizations globally more than any other standard digital signature alternative. And Cosign has also achieved dominant market share in regulated and security-minded industries, including government, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, and many other industries. Cosign is also a high-performance, secure, and turnkey digital signature engine that easily deploys into a business process in an enterprise or in a cloud. As far as our customers, we have several customers worldwide. These are typically organizations that need standard secure digital signature solutions that integrate easily within their business application and also their user management and authentication schemes. And typically these are used to meet compliance or regulatory requirements, and this is how our customers find us and utilize us within their environments. If you need more information about customers of Cosign, you can go to our website, www.arx.com. As far as business drivers for digital signatures, probably one of the key business drivers is to automate the signature-dependent processes. So looking at approval processes or acceptance or agreement of ownership. Also, document integrity and verification. Being able to prove who signed documents and be able to validate that information across the workflow and across your records archives. Also, audit, regulatory, and governance. So so meeting those compliance regulations for good business practices and for automated processes. And thirdly here, another business driver that a lot of our customers are looking at these days is the reduction of paper. And these are organizations that you're seeing on the screen here that have actually done research and put dollar amounts with those processes and in the course of eliminating paper. And so I'm not going to read these, but you can take a look at these and I'll give you a second to go through these. Okay, moving forward here. Regarding Cosign itself, Cosign technology is the global standard for digital signature implementation. In the U.S., these standards are known as FIPS Pub 186-3, Pub 180-3, and ITU-T X.509 version 3. These same standards are recognized and endorsed by governments, large enterprises, and software vendors globally under NIST, ETSI, ISO, OASIS, IETF, and W3C. The Cosign digital signature is actually a proof of signer identity, signer intent, and document integrity. And taking a look at that from a recipient perspective, we'll take a look at this PDF document that was signed by Cosign. The first thing you'll notice within Adobe Reader is that in the top left corner, you'll see that this is recognized as a valid signature, and the signatures on this document are valid. You also get a copy of the visual signature block, and you can provide information that's selectable. You can add graphical information if you choose as well. Now, looking at this from an auditor or an examiner standpoint, you can actually burrow down a little deeper. So you can see how you can identify, again, the signer's identity, the signer's intent, they approve this document, and the document integrity, showing that the document has not been changed or altered in any way since it was signed. You can even burrow down further if you choose, and this information is all embedded into the document. Now, the way Cosign signs these documents, I mentioned that they embed both the graphical and digital information into the native format of these documents. And this is very important because what this does is it creates a self-contained, portable, and sustainable electronic record that can be viewed by recipients outside your organization without any component of Cosign or connectivity back to Cosign whatsoever. And this is very important when deploying digital signatures throughout an organization. Now, as far as Cosign for Microsoft and SharePoint, as far as complementing Microsoft solutions, Cosign out of the box supports multiple versions of Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint signing. It provides sectional signing and interdependent signing for Microsoft Word and Excel. It provides backwards compatibility between different versions of Office, supports XPS signing, InfoPath signing, Outlook mail signing, SharePoint workflow and ECM, PDF and PDF-A signing. Out of the box, you get integration with Active Directory, integration with Microsoft's Kerberos authentication. We support multiple OS platforms, including 64-bit OS. Our APIs are 100% compatible with the .NET. We also are the preferred digital signature solution for Microsoft Office users, and we have a snap-in for Microsoft Management Console. Now, as it relates to SharePoint specifically, Cosign and SharePoint provide a reliable and trusted sequential approval process. It provides users with a consistent set of signature rules needed within regulatory requirements. It protects against signature corruption when Office 2007 documents are signed and then checked into SharePoint. It allows users to view signatures status within lists of documents without having to open those documents one at a time. It enables PDF and PDF-A signing within a SharePoint environment. And the solution provides end-user digital signatures without distributing keys and certificates on PC hard disks or smart cards or USB tokens, and supports Microsoft Mobile for signing from mobile devices. Now the slide I have here is to give you an overview of kind of an architecture of how Cosign would fit into the environment. You can see there the Cosign appliance at the core at the bottom there, and the integration with the Active Directory, connectivity to your SharePoint web front-end portal, as well as your SharePoint application server, and the ability to support web and mobile signing without any desktop software that needs to be deployed, and built-in key management, certificate management within that appliance. And that's really the Cosign for SharePoint solution. So in summary here, when looking at digital signatures, and hopefully those are Cosign, they're being used to stay fully automated start to finish, even when signatures are needed. Requires consideration for pre-existing document types, your pre-existing policies, and your pre-existing user management and authentication schemes. And also requires information integrity and the proper control over the processes and users. If anyone would like to see any additional information on Cosign, we do have recorded demos out on our website. Here's a couple links here. As I mentioned, it's www.arx.com, and we do have those demos out there. So that is the last slide I had. With that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan, who will go ahead and start the demos.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. This is Jonathan. Can you just confirm that you can hear me? Make sure my phone's working.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and what you should be seeing is the Internet Explorer browser where we're logged into SharePoint 2010 for the Cosign for SharePoint demo. And we also, by the way, so Cosign for SharePoint will function with SharePoint 2007 as well as SharePoint 2010. This demo will be in SharePoint 2010, but the functionality is the same. To start off with, there's two ways to use Cosign within SharePoint. Mike touched on this briefly, but one is where you're actually dealing with the documents outside of SharePoint using SharePoint as your document repository. So you'll have Cosign installed locally on your machine, and you can do this in the same fashion that you've been doing it in the past, which is to say you'll click on the Word document, you can select to edit it, it'll open up Microsoft Word, you'll see that it's downloading the document here, document opens, and here I can make edits to the document. I can change the dates that are on here as well as go ahead and sign the document. So because I have Cosign installed on my local machine, I can right-click on these fields, select Sign. Cosign will verify for me the graphical aspect of my signature, allow me to select a reason for signing. It's going to challenge me for my credentials. I have it set to challenge me on every signature action. All of these are settings. You could have it automatically log you in, things of that nature. And my signature is applied to the document, and it's automatically saved back, in this case, to the SharePoint library. Okay? So this is when you have the Cosign software installed locally on your machine, and you're doing your editing outside of the SharePoint environment, just saving the document back. I can close this, and this also works for PDF documents as well as InfoPath forms and Excel spreadsheets. But really, the tie-in is shown when we do the signing straight within the browser. So as Mike spoke about, there's no need to leave the browser if you're using the Cosign for SharePoint add-in. You can see that we've added some objects to the view, some columns here to the view that relate directly to the signature. So if since this document was just uploaded, I can go ahead and select to verify the signatures, and you'll see that the columns, oh, maybe it didn't save back, that's fine. But you can see that it says not signed. And so here for the purchase order of the PDF, I'll show the direct integration. When you have Cosign for SharePoint loaded, you're able to have these three options: sign with Cosign, verify signatures, and review signatures. So for the PDF, I'll select sign with Cosign. Now, if you know on a PDF exactly where the signature is going to be located, so for example, on this purchase order, we know it's going to be in the bottom left-hand corner of the first page, you can set up what are called signature profiles, predefined regions where you'd like the signatures to be applied. On a PDF, if you don't know where the signature is going to be applied, you can click on the link here, which will take us to a visual representation of the PDF within the browser. I can drag and drop my signature where I'd like it to appear, even resize it, select Sign. You can see that it now says New Signature field instead of the predefined region. I can select a reason for signing, and it'll challenge me for my Cosign credentials. Once again, these could be automatically entered in, but I have it set to challenge me on every signing action. Okay. It's going to sign the document and bring us back to the document library, having updated the pertinent columns for this document. So you can see Jonathan Schreiber was the last signer. How many times was it signed? Once. Signature is valid. And the reason for signing is that I approved the document. And when was it last signed? If there were multiple signatures on the document and we wanted to review each signature, we could select Review Signatures, which is going to bring us to a special panel in the SharePoint environment. So all of this is still within the browser. And you could see that this document signed once. It shows the integrity of the document, that the signed content was not changed. It shows the identity of the signer and the reason for signing. Lastly, if I open up this document, let's go ahead and open it in a new tab here. It's going to open with an Adobe Reader in my browser. And as Mike mentioned, because we are standards-based, Adobe Reader automatically recognizes the fact that it's signed and all signatures are valid. And coming down to the bottom of the document, we can see the signature has been applied to this document. If I click on that signature, I can drill down for more details. Just as I showed in the Review Signature screen within SharePoint, I can show that the signature is valid, so and who signed it, so the identity of the signer, as well as the integrity of the document. The document has not been modified since the signature was applied. Okay. So this is the case for PDFs. It also works, as I stated, with Office documents such as Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. I also want to touch on InfoPath forms. So we've created a library for an InfoPath web form, and I can click on it, and it'll show the form here. Once I've filled out the form to my liking, I can go ahead and save and close it back to the library. And I'll have the same options for this InfoPath form as I did, for example, on that PDF. So when I click on it, I get the Sign with Cosign, Verify Signatures, or Review Signatures. So the really nice thing here is that we're doing all of the signing through the browser. And this will work on any device that has a fully featured browser, such as your iPhone, your iPad, an Android tablet. Anything that can access SharePoint, you can now use to sign your documents or InfoPath forms. The other nice thing is for those touch devices, on those touch devices, if you touch anywhere here, it'll highlight the entire document. And then we do have a Cosign tab in the ribbon with Office 2010. So just bigger buttons for easier pressing when you're using those touch devices. So I'll select Sign with Cosign. It'll ask me what section of the document I'd like to sign, because this is a InfoPath web form, so it's built in sections. In this case, the entire document is one section called Employee. I can select a reason for signing or add one on the fly, and then it'll prompt me for my credentials. Okay. And I'll select Sign. And this is going to sign the InfoPath form and bring you back to the document library. And you can see the signature counter has gone to 1. Signature status is a valid signature. And once again, I do have the option to review those signatures on that special screen within the browser. So all of this can take place within the browser, and you're signing with Cosign. The last example I want to show here is for SharePoint list items. So in this case, my list item is essentially a vacation request. So I enter the name of the employee. Since Jonathan's already used, I'll use John Miller. And I'm requesting vacation, so I check that box, the date that I'd like my vacation to start, and how many days I'm going to be gone for. And I'll select Save. You'll see the new list item appears, and you can see the status of the signature counter. So It's unknown because it was just uploaded. So if I click Verify Signatures, you'll see it'll toggle to 0 because it's not signed. I can go ahead and now sign this. Once again, I'm allowed to select a reason for signing. I enter my credentials. And select Sign. And it's going to sign the document, the SharePoint list item, and bring me back to the library. Once again, I can review my signatures or verify signatures. And when I review my signatures on a SharePoint list item, I do have some additional signature details, which is to say what columns of this list item are covered by the signature. And in this case, employee, vacation, requested, start of vacation, and number of days are all covered by the signature. It still shows, of course, the identity of the signer, as well as the fact that it's a valid signature and the integrity of the document, or in this case, SharePoint list item, has not been altered. Okay. That wraps up the demonstration. So I'm going to hand back off to Steve.
Actually, Jonathan, if you could keep control for a second, I did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So walk through talk a little bit about, if you could, the how this integrates, with an out-of-the-box SharePoint site. Is this something where when the feature is activated, it kind of attaches itself to all of your document libraries and lists, or how do you actually set for example, a document library up for taking signatures, or do you do that? You can even do that at the content type level.
Sure. So actually, it's a great question. We've shown two types of signing today. If you recall, the first thing that I signed was that Word document, and that actually occurred on the desktop. So the most basic integration with SharePoint is where you're actually just storing the documents in SharePoint, but you're actually going to be editing them and signing them on your desktop. For the Cosign for SharePoint utility, the add-on utility to SharePoint, it gets deployed globally, turned on a site level, and then you can select your options on a library level. So on each library, you can turn on or shut off this feature. And then, as you stated, you can even get very granular and select content types. So in this library, I happen to only have one content type. You can see here my Cosign digital signature settings on the library level. I happen to only have one content type. So my digital signature settings are the same for all documents in here. But you can specify, for example, if I had document and then I had a separate content type for POs, I could specify that my POs require a reason, but my generic documents do not. So things like that you can definitely drill down.
Excellent. Same thing with a list?
Absolutely. Same thing with list items. If I go into my list settings, you can see here Cosign digital signature settings, and again, content type, I only have the one type in here because this is just a demo environment, but I could specify it by each individual content type.
Excellent. All right, so I got some questions coming in from users, so might as well leave your screen up there for the time being, Jonathan, in case you have to show us. How would the signature work outside of the intranet environment? Would external users have to install anything on their end in order to validate the signature?
In order to validate the signature. So the nice thing about Cosign, and I stress validate so that if the user wants to specify, they can. But the nice thing about Cosign is that the digital signature is embedded into the native format of the document. So as you saw a moment ago, and I'll actually show it again since I have my screen up, when I open up this PDF, it's opening in Adobe Reader within the browser, and Reader recognizes the fact that it's signed, and it can validate the signatures. So nothing else is required but a free copy of Adobe Reader, or in the case of an Office document, Office 2007, 2010, or even 2003 is required. And that's because, once again, it's embedded in the native format because we are a standards-based solution.
Gotcha. So if I emailed you a non-disclosure agreement, just emailed it to you, and on our end, we're going to store, we're going to be doing digital signatures on our end. We send it to you to sign just by opening up that PDF, or in this case, the Word document. You open up the Word document, you would have the ability to sign it and then send it back to us.
So that's why I specified validating, because that was part of the question. In the case of signing, you would need an account within Cosign in order to sign. So if this is, for example, your company's account, then you'd be able to sign as long as you can connect to Cosign. But you would need a user on Cosign. If you're sending it out to a third party, that third party would need a Cosign account.
Gotcha. So this would work. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Mike actually has some examples of maybe he can speak to regarding B2C Cosign use.
Yeah, there's many examples, depending on the customer usage cases, but it depends on how you present the document. If you're emailing documents around for external signatures, yeah, those external parties would need to be registered within Cosign. There's also the example where you may be posting documents or forms on a web portal. The same holds true for that, but you would be accessing those documents via that web portal, and those users would either need to have a pre-existing Cosign registration, or they could potentially be registered on the fly by gathering information off of those forms. So it really kind of depends, again, on the user's usage case.
Gotcha. But in order to, quote-unquote, sign a document, to actually sign the document itself, you need to have an account in Cosign, whether that's an AD account or if it's part of an extranet portal, some sort of account that validates who you are within the Cosign system.
Exactly, because one of the things we're doing is proving the identity of the signer. So gotcha. We do need the account in there.
Mm-hmm. Next question is, we are currently on MOS 2007 and are planning to go to SharePoint 2010. Is this going to work with 2007, which I think you said it would, and would they need to purchase another appliance if they go to SharePoint 2010?
No, it's just a matter of upgrading the plugin. So there's a separate plugin for SharePoint 2007 and one for SharePoint 2010. You just change the WSP file that's loaded into your SharePoint environment, and you can move forward. So you can certainly roll out now with 2007, and then when you move your SharePoint environment to 2010, there's one thing you change in your environment, and it'll continue working with your SharePoint 2010.
Excellent. Next question, are visual signatures only on Word and PDF? I think those are the examples we looked at, but the question is, are the visual signatures that you showed only work in Word and PDF, or does that work in Excel, and what other file formats can you actually visually see the signatures in the browser?
Sure. So the graphical aspect of the signature can be added to Excel, Word documents, as well as PDFs, as was shown. It can be added to InfoPath forms when they're signed on the desktop. It's not supported in web forms. It's a Microsoft limitation on the InfoPath web forms that they don't support the graphical signature. But InfoPath forms when signed on the desktop do support graphical signatures. And you can also have it on if you have some engineering documents, you can, depending on the format, it supports the graphical aspect of the signature on an engineering document as well, engineering drawing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, next question is, what is the two-signature workflow? Does Cosign come with its own set of workflows? That is, if you need the manager to sign the docs in a specific order. So does Cosign come with any type of workflow built into it?
Sure. So essentially, Cosign doesn't come with workflows out of the box, but it does integrate directly with the built-in SharePoint workflow. So if you have a Word document and you're routing it through SharePoint, one of the options in a SharePoint workflow is get signature, and so that functions with Cosign just fine. The two-signature workflow, which I believe the person was noting to, if I'll share my screen once more, is actually the last column in this, which is part of one of the connections Cosign has is with a very popular SharePoint workflow tool called Nintex. And this demonstration environment is set up with a two-signature workflow through Nintex, which we do integrate with as well. So we do integrate with third-party. The short version is, yes, we integrate with both the built-in SharePoint workflow utilities as well as some third-party SharePoint workflow utilities.
Does it integrate? You mentioned Nintex. Does it integrate with K2?
Yes, and I believe, Mike can correct me, but I believe that we do have full integration with K2.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that was one of the follow-up questions. So let me ask a quick question about you mentioned Nintex integration. Does that integrate does it become an action in the Nintex workflow, or because Nintex workflows they come with over 100 different actions you can use when you're creating your workflows. Is when it's integrated, when Cosign is integrated in an environment that has Nintex workflow, is there a Cosign action for get signature?
So it's not actually a Cosign action. What it is it's a content type within a to-do task. So you can assign a to-do task, and that to-do task will be to get a Cosign signature. So you can definitely, and then you can apply logic based on whether there was a signature or rejection. So within the workflow, when it started, when somebody goes in and clicks that link in the email, or they go into their SharePoint environment and see that they have a task, they'll be given the option to either sign or reject. And if they sign, they're signing with Cosign. And then, of course, you can base logic on the result.
Excellent. Thanks. All right, I think that does it for the questions. If you want to give me control back, Jonathan, or I guess I can take it.
Oh, sure. And thank you for organizing this. Let me give you back control. You should have be able to make yourself presenter.
All right. See my screen again?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, that's going to conclude today's 30 on Thursday. We're right at the top of the hour, about 4 minutes over. If you have any follow-up questions, I think we got through all the questions that came in through the GoToWebinar. But if you have any follow-up questions, you can email Mike at mikem@arx, or Jonathan at jonathan.s@arx, or email me, stevew@susqtech.com. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and we'll talk to everybody in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank